Now in the STLC, we can say that we are done with it 100% when the test plan, test design and test execution are done. So this way we are all 100% covered. But when it comes to software development lifecycle, the fifth stage is test. Now just because STLC is done, can we say SDLC stage 5 is done, team? What do you think? Yes or no? No, because the thing that's left is basically the UAT. So that's the topic we'll talk about a little bit today. Following that, so UAT topic will actually, wrap up all the manual testing topics that were part of the syllabus for this class. So so one huge milestone will be done for us once we deal with UAT. Today we are going to take a look at Bugzilla. We'll take a demonstration on what the tool is and how we can use it and all that. If we have time, normally we do have time following the Bugzilla demonstration because it's a very small tool. I do not want to pick up another tool because it will be too overwhelming, 2 tools in one class. I don't want to cram or jam those things in one particular session. So that is why I take a lighter subject, the certification orientation. So I know most of you are interested in certification. There was a lot of healthy discussion last week also based on this topic. So this is normally a topic that we'll do in week 5, but I thought since we have time and since you're all interested and in that mood, we will start with the certification orientation here itself and talk about what are the certifications available, what are your options, whether or not it's important. Sorry. So look at it like a brainstorming. I'm really not going to give you one certification and say, hey, you have to do this. No, but we'll talk about the various options available. And then I'll get to know your interests a little bit and try to, find one that works for you all. So that's the plan for today's session, everyone. And again, for those of you who have joined late, I did not get a chance to look at your assignments because I'm just feeling a little bit under the weather, but I'll clear the backlog within an hour or two after the session is done today. So thank you for your patience in that area, really. So let's get started with UAT. So I'm going to use last week's presentation itself because that was a topic that was planned for last week. Now UAT has 2 phases basically, 2 types I must say. Now just like software belongs to 2 categories. One is software that is built as a service. So this is when the client gives the exact specifications, business requirements to an IT organization or any software builder, and the IT organization is providing the client a service of building the software. So here the software is a service. Now this is what we talk about most of the time. There's a dev environment, QA environment, production environment, and UAT happens in the QA environment in this case most often. So in this case the users or the performers, people who perform UAT in this case would be the client representatives. So they might be, the real-time users. So if it's a banking application, the users might be, the bank tellers or the bank manager, whoever is going to use this application on a daily basis, they would form the user group and they would participate in the UAT. In this case, normally UAT is performed in the QA environment. So this is where we are talking about it in the context of software being a service. Now the second context is where we are talking about software being a product. Now we talked about how software might not be built to satisfy one specific user, but it might be built and made available as a product and people can buy and use it as they see fit. Examples of this kind of software are MS Office Suite, GoToTraining, any other commercial software that you pay to use. Those kind of software are products. Now in this kind of software, there is no client. I mean, see, I'm right now I'm actually the user for GoToTraining, but I have never actually gotten in touch with Citrix and told them, hey, this is what I'm looking at. No. So they come up with a set of common functionality that is useful for everybody who is looking for an online training medium, and they incorporate it into their software and make it available as a product. So with now, when the software is built as a product, there is no client, but then there is still an IT organization. So in the case of MS Office, there is Microsoft. In the case of GoToTraining, there's Citrix. So these are IT organizations, which means the development process is going to be the same. They will have the development environment, QA environment, and production environment. But this production environment is at the user end. So right now, I'm using GoToTraining in my environment. So production environment for GoToTraining is my computer, my laptop, the thing that I'm using right now. So that is my environment, right? But here the QA environment will pertain to the IT organization's environment where they actually test it. So here UAT would be carried by end users or customers in other words. So UAT here is simply called acceptance testing. Now let's look at it from the point of view of how does this happen and what happens here. So let's say you want to buy a product, or I want to buy GoToTraining. What will I do actually? I will first purchase a trial. I'll try it on my own environment. I'll purchase the trial, install the software, use it on my own environment and see whether it satisfies the criteria that I set for this software or not. So what I'm doing here, I'm performing a final test before I am accepting this software. So I'm performing an acceptance testing of sorts. But where is this happening? This is happening in the production environment, the environment of the real-time user. So whenever this acceptance testing is happening in the user or the production environment, that kind of testing is called beta testing. So beta testing is specific to commercial software systems, and this is performed by the end users or customers in their own environment, in their production environment, real-time environment. And this can happen in the form of trial or anything else. But on the other hand, if I get in touch with Citrix and say, hey, can you arrange for a demo? I'll come on so-and-so date and all that. They will still give me a demonstration, or they will still let me use the software, but that will happen in the Citrix's environment, or the QA environment of that particular organization. So if the acceptance testing is happening in the QA environment, that is, or in the producer's environment, that's called the alpha testing. So in the context of software as a product, alpha testing and beta testing are different. But in the context of software as a service, there is no different alpha or beta testing. It is just UAT testing, and that is what we are going to talk about right now. So UAT testing, there are two things that testing team normally does, like you and I. We prepare the test plan. That part we've seen already in the test plan document. There's a UAT section. So we plan for the UAT as comprehensively as we normally plan for the functional testing. Now, why do we do this? The reason why we test UAT, we plan for UAT is because UAT at the end of the day is testing. And who are the experts on testing? Us. So even though it is performed by users who are not actually testers, we doing the planning part is going to ensure that the actual execution that follows is going to happen smoothly. And what is our role? What is the next thing that we do in addition to preparing a test plan? We assist the users in performing UAT. So we'll talk about what kind of assistance that is. Now following that, there is also, if you remember the V model from day 2, the UAT is performed against the business requirements. So always remember that UAT will not happen in as detailed a fashion as normal functional or system testing would happen. Now UAT is also a black box testing technique, but UAT will not work on like field level specifications. Say for example, password has to be a certain length. They will not do any boundary value testing on that or something like that, because UAT is started with the assumption that the functional testing has been carried out and has been successful. So they will only validate whether or not the business requirements are satisfied. Now to start with, usually acceptance criteria is collected first. That means what is the qualities that the end user is looking for. Say here, look, for example, it says that the system must execute the end of the job and the results of the payroll must be correct. So for a payroll processing system, the business requirements might be the taxes have to be collected right, the pay slips have to be generated periodically. So all of those business related high level requirements are the ones that are part of it. Now what is the user's role? User in the sense the person who is performing the user acceptance testing. So that is the client representative. They will first give us an acceptance criteria. What is it that they are trying to look at? They will provide us the use cases. That means the certain functionality in the application that they are interested in testing. And they will also provide infrastructure for user training, because sometimes most of the clients, they're not very tech savvy. I mean, they might be. I mean, in this day and age, it's hard to believe that somebody is not tech savvy. But they might need a little bit of an induction in order to use a new software seamlessly on day one. So to enable that, a little bit of training might be provided. And that training is usually the collective responsibility of the business analyst and the QA team. Then the provision of the user resources is a responsibility of the client, and then the comparison, all of that is their responsibility. Now I'll explain, all of the gist of all of this in a little bit. But when it comes to a software tester's role, it could be one of these three things. One is we are not involved at all. This is an autonomous activity that the final users will take care of from end to end. So in that case, there's no involvement. But however, no involvement scenario is very rare in the real-time situation. Hardly ever has UAT happened without a QA team's involvement. So even though it can be achieved, QA team not being involved in UAT, it is practically possible, but not so much. Then the QA team can play the role of an advisor. In this case, what we will tell them is, hey, if you are interested in checking these business requirements, this is the path you follow, this is what you do. So we kind of leave our inputs with them and let them explore and make their own decisions. The third part is where we are active participants. Now active participation could range from just providing them the use cases, test cases, to actually performing the test. Now, what do you mean by providing test cases? That might be a question that you all might be having at this point of time. Now, UAT test cases are usually end-to-end test cases. So if you remember in the state transition diagram, we talked about how to make a ticket, how to make a payment, how to issue the ticket, and then you use a ticket. So this is like the end-to-end flow. Now, you will have to provide your test cases so that they will be an end-to-end flow inclusive. Now, if you ask me, do we write new test cases for UAT? No. We pick up the existing system testing test suite. We pick a subset of these that are pertaining to the end-to-end scenario and give these to the client. So when we are saying that QA team will have an active participant role, this means that we will provide all these use cases sometimes and leave it alone. Or we might actually test these. So you might actually execution also that QA team will perform. But at this point of time, we don't have a decision. So we will present the results to the client. Now the client will make an interpretation on whether or not these results are acceptable or not. So if we are playing the role of where we have to perform the testing, our role ends there at testing itself. We are not at any liberty to make the decision of whether or not the software is acceptable. That, no matter how involved you are, that is something that is outside the arena of the QA. Okay, now acceptance test plan, again this is all a lot of theory, we have covered this already. Now acceptance test plan will include a brief description of the project, the user responsibilities or the client representative's responsibilities, what kind of administrative procedures are we following, like the communication protocols, and how are we going to handle reports and all that. Then there's the acceptance description, that is what conditions mean that we accept the software, what conditions mean that we are not going to accept the software, all of that. And then it also includes the requirements, execution methodology, the test plan, so on and so forth. But all of this information is something that we know already. So practically one thing that I see, it can range from anything, as I said, just providing the test cases all the way through performing the test. So that is all inclusive when it comes to UAT. But most often UAT is 1 or 2 days. And this happens in a meeting room or something where everybody sits together. QA team is available on standby again, when I say QA team, the QA team at this point of time is also thins down. It'll be 1 or 2 people will remain on the team. The rest of them will have moved on to a different project. So the QA team will be available on standby, and the reason why they are available on standby is to answer questions, provide guidance on how to use the system, or sometimes even provide training, or if the team needs help in interpreting the results, all that information is provided. All that, that kind of help is provided by the QA team. But when it comes to the client, they are the ones who make the acceptance decision. Usually the acceptance decision is called the go or no-go decision. So go means the product is going live, no-go means the product is not going live. Now we talked about this earlier also. UAT is also a form of testing, which means there will again be defects. What happens if defects are there in the UAT? I mean, if defects are caught in the UAT? One thing is there are various types of defects, correct? We know that. There is defect severity, and then, defects that will cause a crash, defects that, are minor, cosmetic, spelling related errors, that kind of stuff. So there's a whole gamut of defects available. Now, at this point of time, what happens if the defects do come up? That's not an answer that we can answer with a certain level of conviction every single time. But usually what happens is, first thing, it is bad news for the QA team. So always remember that if a defect is caught in the UAT, the general implication is that the system testing team has not caught it. Of course, that's not a healthy way to look at it, but that's the attitude that's in the industry. So brace yourself for all the criticism that's going to come. But having said that, at the end of it, our primary focus should be the welfare of the product itself. So if you think in that area, when defects are identified in the UAT phase, what we have to do is we have to analyze. Again, when I say we, I don't just mean QA team, I mean the whole entire project team. And then the decision has to be made. So there are 3 kinds of decisions that can happen at this point of time. Number 1 is the product goes as is. The defects will not be addressed, the product goes as is, and we are not going to do anything with it. Or we'll quickly fix the issue and then it still goes live. So you'll quickly fix the issue, probably 1 or 2 days delay at this point of time in the go live date. But those issues will be addressed first and then the product goes live. The third scenario is that the product does not go live and you're going to rework on all the issues from the beginning, and then when you feel like you're ready, all the different phases of testing will be repeated, all that will be repeated, and when again another UAT round goes in and then they're satisfied, that's when the product goes live. So these are the 3 different ways in which UAT defects can influence the go or no-go date. But yeah, this is it. And also in what circumstances which option taken, that depends entirely on the kind of defects that are encountered and a collective decision that is taken by the entire project team. Any questions on UAT team? All right, so you're all with me so far? Everything's making sense? Great. So now we will go to Bugzilla, which is a defect management software. So in the meantime that I launch Bugzilla, could you all tell me what activities are involved in defect management process? So go ahead and let me know and I'll make a list of it here. So Tina says finding defects, reporting it, errors. Okay, so let me break that down. So defect management process has 3 steps first. So defect identification is something that happens through testing. So that is something that falls outside of this category. So the first thing is defect reporting or defect logging. So we are here basically you're creating the defect. Now what is required? How do you do this? You need to have an ID. What else, team? Description, okay. Proof, screenshot, okay. Steps, thank you. Steps to reproduce, thank you. Severity, status, okay, makes sense. Responsible tester or the owner, correct? We need that. So we need all of these things. The second step to repair defect reporting is you should be assigning this defect to someone. Yeah, screenshot. Thank you, Kiran. It's already included here. So you should be able to assign this issue to somebody. That means you should be able to, forward this to the respective owners as and when things happen. And while the forwarding is happening, comments need to be incorporated to tell them what we expect from them and what we expect to receive, in return from them. And the third thing is to actually work on them and to effectively close them, right? So these three are, the primary things that we do with these three are the primary things that we do with defects. Now you might be wondering what's wrong with using Excel sheets. Does anybody feel like, there are any limitations to using Excel sheets, team? Okay. All right. So let me try and explain that better now. So here we have an Excel sheet. So let's say I'm assigning this to Sandhya. Okay. The owner, I'll change the owner's name to Sandhya. I'll put this to open and I will send this email out. And then you will have to actually change the respective status to whatever and send it back to me. And this email has to go between a few people a few number of times. And this is the case with just one defect. Do you think how will is it easy? I mean, I will definitely not say it's not doable. You can definitely do it. But on the other hand, is it really optimum is my question. What do you think? It's not really optimum because first thing is there is no guarantees that the status will be up to date at all times. And then there are no guarantees that, the integrity of the document will be preserved because it goes through different people. Different people have different software systems. So what if I send this to somebody who has ODS on their machine? They don't have Microsoft. Then the format gets messed up. So there's all of these issues and there's a lot of management. There are different testers who raise this issue. So this sort of email chains back and forth is going to create a lot of congestion within the team. So that is why defect management is one of the areas that is highly recommended to be performed using a software that is called the defect management software. And there are lots of defect management softwares available in the market. One simple and most effective one is Bugzilla. This is an open source software used exclusively for defect management. So I'll show you what defect management is, how do you do it with the tool and all that in a little bit. Now before we get there, let me tell you what we mean by open source software and how do these things work and all that. Usually these softwares, are web-based applications. Sorry. So there is a client. So what you can do in Bugzilla is you can create your defects. You can manage them. You can generate reports around them. You can retrieve the defects and all that. So everything that you would normally do in an Excel sheet pertaining to the defect, you can do that via this web-based medium. So this is how Bugzilla interface looks like. Now, normally this is a software that you will have to install, but software is available as a service these days. So I'll talk about what I mean by software as a service, but all you need is this URL. And Deepthi, I see your question. I'll come to that in a little bit. And all you have to do is create a new account. To do that, all you need is an email ID, and you can get set up in as little as 5 minutes. So this is a trial that is provided by Bugzilla for those of us who want to evaluate it. Okay. Now, most of these, most of the software systems that are available over the internet these days are 3-tiered architectures. So they have a client. I think we talked about this already, but I'll just reiterate this. We have a client, and then there is a database. So the client is called the front end, or the user interface, or GUI, graphic user interface, however you want to call them. So this is basically the web page that you're seeing, a means for us to interact with the system. At the back end, we have the database. So see, we are creating the defects. We are trying to, setting the statuses. Where does all that information go? So this into the defect database. So at the back end is a defect database. To power the interaction between these two, there is something called a web service, or any other application servers, web service. All of these services are present to power these the interaction between these two. So this is the middle layer, or the services layer. So there's client, services, and the database. The same is true for Bugzilla also. So normally, if you have to make any application work, you need to install the client, you need to install the service, you need to install the database. However, with the improvement of technology, fortunately, we don't have to do any installations, because the client and the web service are provided in a cloud-based medium by the owners of the software. So the Bugzilla owners will provide the cloud and the database and the web service for you. But in this case, the security is a little bit of a concern, because your defects, your company's confidential information is in the ownership of the Bugzilla's owners, correct? So that way it is a little bit of a compromise on security. But then for us, for people like you and I who are trying to evaluate this software, this is the greatest news. We don't have to do any installations. We can get started in as little as 5 minutes. So right now we are going to use the client. This one, no installations necessary. You can create an account immediately and get started with Bugzilla. But this is the architecture, not just for Bugzilla, but all the other management software that we are going to talk about in the class, including Quality Center. Okay, so this is how things are organized. And then when we are talking about, user profiles. Now, there are two major types of user profiles that are available for this kind of, management softwares. One is the regular user, and then there is the administrator. So administrators are responsible for creating projects, are responsible for creating users. They are responsible for licenses and payments if they have to be made, all that. So all these admin activities are provided by the administrator. Now this is a field that we will not be involved in. We will not ever work as administrators, because companies, they have an independent administrator who will take care of this activity. Usually company-wide there is one administrator. So usually QAs do not have to play the role of an administrator. But I believe that unless we see an administrator role, our knowledge is always going to be incomplete on how that area works. But having said that, Bugzilla is not the right tool to look into the administration part, because we are not really installing anything or buying the license. So the Bugzilla's owners will not give us the admin access. However, I will show you an admin module on how it works with Jira tomorrow. So for this tool, we won't see the admin part, but I will show you how admin works with another tool. The process is pretty much the same. Okay, so we will go there, but the profile that we are going to work on is the user profile. Now, who do you think is this user team? Is it the QA? Is it the dev? Is it the BA, PM, client, or all the above? Thank you. It is everyone, because when you raise defects, they are not just because QA team has to see them, QA team has to work on them. If that were the case, we would just do it with an Excel sheet, correct? But here we are looking at everybody being able to look at the defects, provide their comments, act on it, understand the see the reports, understand the statuses, so on and so forth. So that is why usually to bug tracking systems and everything, everybody in the project teams should have access. So here we should not confuse ourselves that users belong to different to one particular department. Everybody is basically the user. So why even the clients? That's a good question. The client is involved because sometimes a certain defect might actually affect the business functionality. So to get a confirmation on that, how do you show that defect to the client? So we can just say, hey, you know what, take a look at defect ID so and so and let me know what your input on that is. And moreover, clients' involvement into defects is very important, because when they see the trends of the defects, they can actually tell whether or not the software is behaving according to the business or not, and they can make a decision beforehand itself to say, hey, you know what, things are not going fine, we have to start again, or that, you know, things are fine, we can move as it is. So that kind of administrative decisions are made by clients, so it's very important to, you know, involve them in the work. Normally, yes, and also some clients are very you know, involved in on an everyday basis. For people like them, they're really, you know, a part of testing, and they want to see every day what's happening. For them, definitely you'll have to do this. So in that case, whether there's a problem or not, they will still be involved. All right. Okay, so now let's come specifically to Bugzilla. You might be wondering, again, Deepthi was asking me, QC also is used for defect management. Yes, QC is used for defect management, Jira is used for defect management, Bugzilla, Mantis, Fogbuzz. I actually, you know, if I sit down to recollect how many bug tracking tools there are, I probably will run out of time and I'll still not be able to list all of them. So there are that many bug tracking softwares available in the market. But having said that, are you wondering, do I have to learn all of them? What if I learn one and the client is using something else? Where am I going to go in that scenario? The answer to that question is, see, we kind of just need to learn one tool in one area. The rest of them are going to be similar. So see, we use GoToTraining. If we use WebEx, which is also a similar, you know, training conducting medium, it'll be the same. I mean, slight differences will be there. The menu will, when I minimize in WebEx, it goes on the top horizontally. But when I minimize and GoToTraining, it goes vertically to the side on the screen. So slight differences like that are always going to be there. But when you use one, you'll be effectively able to use the other. So always do not worry on learning every tool available. That is practically impossible. But learn one tool very well. And the other advice or, you know, recommendation that I normally make is that don't expect the tool to teach you something. Expect you to, you know, be able to use the tool for a certain thing. So what I mean by that is, don't expect Bugzilla. So let me write that again. So if you think that when you start using Bugzilla, when you start using so what I'm trying to tell you is, don't expect Bugzilla or any other defect management tool to teach us defect management. The tool will not help us in this area. We ourselves as testers need to know the defect management process in order to use Bugzilla, but it's not the other way around. The usage of Bugzilla does not guarantee that we know defect management. See, again, another extreme example that I always give is, Microsoft Word cannot read our minds. If you expect that to happen, that's actually, you know, we are in a sort of delusional, state. So know the defect management process very well. Understand when a defect status changes, and know how who you need to assign this defect to next. So learn the inbuilt process very well. The third piece of advice that I have is, always download the documentation. Now I know it's not a favorite thing for us to read all this, you know, content, or, you know, it's not. It isn't for me also. But the point is, when you're really trying to learn a particular software, where will you find all about it? Of course, I'm dealing with it in the class. I'll probably deal with it for the next 10 minutes. After that, you're on your own. So when you get this documentation, it's a sort of, you know, reassurance, and everything that the software can and cannot do is listed out there. So even if you don't want to read it right away, just download a copy and keep it for your reference. That really has a lot of insight into it. The next thing that I would recommend is take a look at the software itself. Now, the basic principle behind any software that is being built is that It needs to be usable. It needs to be easy to use. See, just because this software is going to be used by software professionals, they're not going to build it any harder. So that is something, you will have to remember. See, if I'm making a, if I'm making a software for rocket scientists, I'm not going to hide the, options and tell them to find it, because they're intelligent people, right? So no matter who the software is built for, it is built to be easy. So let's all take advantage of that fact. Everything um, Everything that this software can do or cannot do will be clearly listed out to you. So here you see the main things that are, highlighted, or, that are built to catch your eye is, first thing is to file a bug. File a bug is nothing but creating a bug or reporting a bug, recording, logging, same thing. Searching for a bug, opening a new account, and documentation. So these two are things that are related to, getting started. But searching a bug is related to retrieving an issue. Filing a bug is, the main thing that we do, close it. And next, work with the main menu. So there's home, new. So let's just log in. I think it'll ask me to reset the password now, but we will still be able to work on it, I'm thinking. Yeah. See, there's the message. It says, due to the data disclosure, all current passwords have been discarded. Never mind. It'll just take a minute, team. Let me reset this. Okay. So Hini, I can send it, but the thing is it is too huge for my email client, and you just need to like download it from here. It's pretty easy. So try it. If you are not able to download the help file, let me know and I'll send it to you. And then what is the most common tool that is mostly used by, most companies is Sandhya's question. Now, that is not a generalization that I can make. Because different companies have different policies, but I'll tell you this much. Bugzilla is also used by a lot of companies. So that way Bugzilla is not far behind. Okay, I think it will now allow me to log in. There we go. So the only thing that's different before I logged in and logged out is that, now that I logged in, it just shows my email ID. There's not a lot of difference. So Bugzilla actually does not have a cloud version, but this is a trial that they have created for us in order to explore. So if you were to get the actual version of Bugzilla, you will have to install the database, client, and everything. Okay. Now, the next thing that I would recommend you all do is take a look at the menu options. Work your way through the menu, because nothing else will be hidden in this software. So home, see what's happening. It will just take you to the main home page or bring you back here. So new will be like, entering and creating a bug. We'll come to that in a little bit. Browsing would be, you can look at, we'll come to that also in a little bit. Search is where you can search for your bugs, because what good is it when you create the bugs and not be able to retrieve them? So the best way to retrieve them, easiest, would be to search them. And then it will generate these reports. These reports are what will substitute for all the metric gathering and status report generation that we do. And then if you need to make any requests to your administrator for access or anything, you can submit it through this. And preferences is, how you want to organize this page, your time zone, your language preferences, all that you can set in the preferences. Help will again take you to the documentation. So you see, this is so limited in functionality. So let's work our way through. So home, except for new and browse, rest everything is simple. So we are going to look at new, browse, search, and report screens. Okay, and feel free to post your questions as we go, or stop me if you have any questions. So when I hit on the new, so here I will get to the same page whether I try to access this through the new menu or if I just click on the file a bug. Okay, so it's the same thing. Now there are different products here. The reason why you're seeing all these products is because, see, company wide usually one tool is used. One tool is used for the entire company and different projects will be there in that company, correct? So assume that these are the different projects that this company is handling. So let's say food replicator is our project or Carguriji is our project. We'll just click on that. So that will become the product against which you're raising an issue. And then the component should have information like the admin module, dealer module, and all that. Now the reason why we don't have our project included in here is because this is a trial of Bugzilla and we don't have the admin access. If we had the admin access, we can create a product for ourselves and attach the components as we see fit. Since we don't have that, we are going to move forward with the assumption that the food replicator stands for Carguruji and the component stands for our admin, dealer, and all of that. And also, look at these, take a look at these links. So there are bug writing guidelines and most frequently reported bugs. So take a look at that when you get a chance to explore this software. Go ahead and take a look at that. And when you read the bug writing guidelines especially, pay special emphasis on are they in accordance to what we are dealing with in the class, or if there are differences. If there are differences, bring them to the class. We will discuss about that and answer all the questions that you might have. Then the version talks about the release in which this bug is found. The severity is again blocker, critical, major, normal, minor, trivial, and enhancement. So you can set the severity value here while you're creating the bug. Now when we were doing our bug tracking, blocker was not part of it, trivial was not part of our description, enhancement was not part of our description. So what you can do is at this point of time, you can talk to your administrator and say that, hey, we need critical, major, minor, medium, low, and cosmetic as our severity. So the administrators can, in addition to creating the projects and all the skeleton information, they can actually set values that need to come under the drop downs, and they can actually also set access permissions, like all the people will not have access to all the projects. So that kind of restrictions can also be placed. So those are things the administrators would do. Now if there are any hardware specifications you can provide here or OS information, you can do that. They're optional, of course. And here is the summary section. See, I was telling you how the defect title has to be a small but concise thing. The reason is because usually the summary section is only a few words. It is 100, 125 or maximum 255 word limit is existing on most of the applications interfaces. So always try to make sure that your summary column is as short as possible but as informative at the same time. So this is this is something that take your time with it, take your time while coming up with the summary section and then incorporate that. And the steps so let's try and create one. So there was this one suggestion that I got from one of the team members itself. Instead of sending there is a dealer message option. Right? So we send a message to a dealer that goes in an email and we don't know if the email is received or not, and by the time the dealer checks their email and gets back to us, the car might already be sold, correct? So the enhancement suggestion that was made by one of our participants is that instead of email, a chat option has a higher chance of immediate response. Correct. So there, if the dealer is right there online, you can talk to the dealer immediately and get an answer and make a decision on whether or not you want the car, and then there will not be any disappointments following that. So that I thought was a very valid suggestion, and let's make that a bug right now. So I'll just set the severity to an enhancement. So just to note that this is an enhancement request. So as you're seeing, as I'm typing the summary, few bug IDs are getting popped up in the bottom. This is because this is Bugzilla's way of preventing the users from entering duplicate bugs. So here, everything is similar. So see, right now the keyword I think here is email. So wherever the bug descriptions that similarly have email word in them, they are all coming up here. Now I can actually now take a look at this and see if I'm raising a duplicate issue. In that case, I can just not raise this one, or I can simply go ahead and raise it. So this is just suggestive. It is not restricting me from doing anything, but it is preventing me from entering duplicate defects. So that's a neat feature in Bugzilla, I think. And then write the steps to reproduce here. So write step 1, 2, 3, all of that. Then do not forget what you're expecting and what is happening. And also, if it helps, give the reference to BRD or FRD or anything else, that will help solidify your opinion of why something is a bug. So do that definitely. And then you can attach attach a file. So I'm just going to attach something, I don't have an image, I believe. That's fine. Some file, just attach it. And then name it appropriately, missing home page link or something like that. Always make sure you name it appropriately. That's one of the best practices that we have to follow. And then go ahead and submit this bug. So you see, as soon as the bug got submitted, an automatic ID is generated for it. So this is how Bugzilla starts, this is how you can record a bug in Bugzilla. As soon as you do that, this is opened up in, an editing mode. But before that, are there any questions? Are you all with me so far? Okay, so this is how you would create your bugs. The next thing is, so do you think Bugzilla satisfies all those areas where you have to, all the things that are part of defect creation process? Do you think Bugzilla satisfies all that? Or do you think there are any shortfalls? There are no shortfalls, correct? You can create your bug description and all of that. So yes, so that way Bugzilla helps you with defect creation. That is agreed 100%. Now Bugzilla's life cycle, bug life cycle is this way. Let me show you. Actually, it is in the help file also, but I don't want to scroll like a huge document, so I'm just picking it from Google. So this is the bug life cycle that Bugzilla follows. So usually a bug is an unconfirmed state. That is when we are entering this information, and then it moves to a new or a confirmed state. See right here. And as soon as, see, I just created this email and it got automatically assigned to Tara Hernandez. Why do you think that happened? This is because all the defects that QA teams create, they are assigned to their QA lead immediately, right? So this is an automatic process that is incorporated into, so you can talk to your administrator and set this kind of rules. So all the issues that are raised under project XYZ should automatically get assigned to Swati Sila or whoever is, taking care of that stuff. So this kind of rules can be set, and you can actually avoid the need to manually send an email to that person every time you raise a defect. So the automatic assignment is happening and the automatic sending of an email is happening. So right now it says email is sent to no one. That's because the admin has not set it that way. But if I set it that way, the admin, it will definitely trigger an email to Tara. So it's up to us how we want to define those rules. Now the QA team, the development team can take a look at this, edit the status to in progress, and assign this to a developer. Right? So that kind of assigning can happen easily. So let's say this person is the developer. I hope, I'm not spamming that person's inbox, but anyways, let's assume that's the developer and set the status to in progress. The developer can then take a look at that and set the status to resolved. So resolved, we know there is the positive and negative here. Positive is when the issue is fixed, and negative is when it's an invalid defect, or that we won't fix the issue, or when it's a duplicate, or that it works for me, or that it is moved to a next release. So all of these other options are present. So let's say we have set it to duplicate, and if you say it's a duplicate, you'll have to provide the information on what bug is this duplicating. So if we need more information, then the status is invalid, and provide the comments like, it is mentioned that the BRD specifies XYZ is supposed to happen. Could you point to the page number, please? Something like that. So if they need more information, they will just set the appropriate status as invalid and provide you a comment and save it. And now they'll assign it to a tester. So the tester will come here, open this up, and if you agree with the comment and if you agree with the status that they set, you can set as verified and close it. But if you are not happy with this, you can say confirmed, assign it back to the developer and save changes, and they will know that the bug is assigned to them. So you can actually create bugs, assign them, follow them through the lifecycle states. Now there are slight differences here. So you see the status is new instead of open, and then there's confirm unconfirmed. So slightly terminology differences will exist from tool to tool, but the entire functionality by itself, it remains the same. Makes sense, everyone? Any questions? So this is very, very simple. And the other thing is about the priority field. See here, the importance field is broken down into two categories. So there's P1, P2, P3, and then the severity. Severity is set by the QAs, and the priority is set by the developers. So all the history is in one place, and in addition to that, if a project manager wants to use this in order to estimate how much work it's going to take, let's say this bug, this point usually confuses the participants because they're wondering, estimation, why are we doing on how much time it will take to fix the bug? No, this is not done by the QS, definitely not, because we cannot tell how long a bug will take to fix, so we are not the experts on that. So when the developer gets this, and if they assume that this is going to take 3 days, so that is, let's say 24 hours, because that's the simplest thing. You can actually set that and set a deadline before which, they'll set a deadline before which this bug needs to be done, and they'll save changes. Every time they work on it for a few hours, they can go ahead and log the work. So they've worked on 3 hours already, and when they save the changes, it will tell you that 3 hours have been worked, current deadline is so and so, and all that. So they'll just let you know. So this will help us track the estimations also, effort estimation. So this is an optional part. If you want to use it, you can use it or no. And then if this defect is blocking any defect, you can set that, this defect is blocking the so and so defect ID. And if this is yeah, it says 100% complete, probably because I chose a deadline. Again, sometimes there are rules set that, it will automatically, see now it has calculated 37. So sometimes it will automatically, when I say 3, it will minus it from 24 and put it as 21 hours left sometimes. Sometimes, some teams will actually choose not to do that. They want to manually enter how many hours are worked, how many hours are left. So it's a decision that is made by the team, and how they want to do that. But you're right, that's a good observation actually. It shouldn't have said 100% complete. And then this comments is a way to, communicate with the teams. Everything else is fine. Personal tags, you can place a tag on this, so the next time you search for it, you will be able to find it easily. Similarly, you can assign keywords to group the defects into a certain category. All the database defects, you can provide a tag database or something. so that all the database, when you look for all the issues that have the keyword database, you'll find them all in one group. So all that you can do, and then you can so you can set additional things like this. Proposed batch, where is that? I don't see that. So where is that, the proposed batch? I don't see it. Patch. Oh, proposed patch, in the sense patch is always the change request. So if you have like any document that you want to attach, so it might be a change request document, it might be a test case document, anything. So they're just giving you an idea of what you can attach to a bug. Okay. So that is about new bugs creating, and browsing is nothing but when you want to look at all the bugs that belong to a certain all the bugs that belong to a certain project. You can actually browse through them based on the product and based on the component version, so you'll see all of them here. And when it comes to effort estimation, your question is what is gain. Gain is normally, ideally I'm telling you, it's not adding up in this case, but ideally gain is when you are supposed to finish a job in 24 hours, you've done it in 18. In that case, the gain is 6 hours or 25%. So the gain is nothing but how much ahead you finished and how much time we saved because as a result of that. It's not adding up here, I agree with you. We'll have to do some research on that. So see if that's happening for other issues also, and let me know, please. So that's how you create an issue and do the bug management process. And another neat factor is the reports. See, I'll just come here. On the vertical axis, I will actually choose bug ID. No, that will be too much. Severity and status is a good one. So you see, it has actually generated all the bugs that are in the system based on the severity and the status. So this is an easy table to generate. Now let me show you how we can generate a bar graph in a matter of a few clicks. So if you were to submit this to your management and show them how the bugs are organized or how the distribution of bugs is happening within the system, this can be done in as little as a few seconds. So there are lots of tabular CSV related reports that you can generate that you can use to actually show how well or how not well your system is doing. So this is a very nice, neat feature that is available for management and to actually get a visual impact on how work is progressing. So reports are an integral part of this. Notifications on the other hand, so you can actually you can talk to your administrator and set some rules. See, if the developer has not worked on an issue for 3 days, you can actually send them a reminder email. So this streamlines the entire process. All the bugs are in one place. They are secure, their integrity is preserved. It's a wonderful communication channel. So that way I see that it's definitely beneficial to use a bug tracking software than trying to do it manually. Another question that I wanted to ask was, do you see any areas based on your individual analysis, do you see any areas where Bugzilla might not be performing the activity that is required in a defect management system? So why is it assigned to someone from Bugzilla? Because defects are first of all right here in Bugzilla. And if you want somebody's attention to come onto this defect, then you will have to assign it to them. Correct? Let me know if that makes sense or if you have further question on that. But you will have to remember that the Excel sheets no longer exist. When you have a tool like Bugzilla, you will write the defect directly in Bugzilla. And the way you bring somebody's attention here is you can do it through the system. You don't have to send an additional email outside and say that so-and-so bug ID has been raised, take a look at it. Instead, you can do that in Bugzilla itself so they can directly, get it. So the development team can work on the defect, yes. Whoever is up next. So if a QA is raising it and if they need QA lead to look at it, then you'll assign it to the QA lead. And if the QA lead will have to assign it to the development lead, they'll assign it to the development lead. The development lead will then assign it to the developer. So the entire bug tracking process that happens outside the system is still the same, except that this tool will help us streamline the process is all. Make sense? Okay, coming back to my question, do you see any shortfalls, any drawbacks? I mean, if that question were asked to me, I would say no, no to, because agreed that this tool is very limited in functionality. It does just the defect management, but it does it pretty well. So whatever limited scope that this tool takes on, it really does a good job of it. So by that way, I do not have any negative feedback on Bugzilla. It's a good tool. It serves its purpose, and it's pretty good in that. Simple, easy to use, easy to learn. So, but the real use value is get some practice on this tool, and I bet you will be able to effectively use any other defect management software without any issues. Yes, it is very precise. It is limited though. That's a good way to put it. Exactly. Does it track the changes done on it and its status and who made the changes? Let's look at that. So if I just click on my bugs, all the bugs that I raised are going to come up. So this one's the one, correct? So let's see. See, it is showing me all the history, what all changes happen. Work is logged here. What status anybody mentioned. So everything is included, is tracked here, which would be actually a Herculean task to do it like, manually. Right? Yeah. So it's great actually. Using this tool is great. And one more thing I'll also instruct you all, recommend you all to do is do not compare tools that belong to the same genre. See, if you compare a defect management tool with another defect management tool, that will be a fair comparison. But if you try to compare a defect management tool with a project management tool, that's not going to be fair, because project does not just involve defects. It involves many more things. So always try and compare only tools that belong to the similar genre, not ones that belong to different ones. So that's also a very, very important expectation that we have to keep in mind. So anytime anybody will ask you which one is a better tool, Bugzilla or Jira or what, so just tell them that it's not a fair comparison, and that kind of comparison is like comparing apples and oranges. They are fruit. That's where it ends. The similarity ends. So similarly, all these are management tools, and that's it. They have nothing else in common. They're all very different. They all cater to different audience, and they have different targets. And in each of their capability, they're very strong. All right, so that's all I have about Bugzilla. If you have nothing else, we can move to the next topic. So today, I'll ping you this link. I'll ping it right away, and I'll also send it in the email. Just create an account. It just takes 2 minutes. All it needs is an email ID, and you can use this tool indefinitely. So try and use this tool. The whiteboard is where you can actually, write any information, any random comments, and save it. So that information will get saved with the bug. So which is most widely used in the service industry, if you could highlight? Again, we're coming back to the same question now. I don't mind it though, don't get me wrong. It's just that it is not, one tool is not used in the industry, first of all, because different companies have different types with different vendors, and we have different understandings, comfort level and all that. But which is widely used? I would say QC is very, very widely used in the market as far as test management is concerned. There's also Rally that's picking up. Rally is actually a agile management software. But if you're wondering whether or not we're going to cover all this in class or whether you'll be able to use all that, not to worry. Day after tomorrow, we'll discuss a software called Q-Test, which is an agile management plus test management software. So you're all covered. Okay, so the specifics don't matter as long as you're learning the skill as a whole. So tomorrow we'll do Jira and the day after tomorrow we'll do Q-Test. So that will finish like incident management and test management softwares for you. And I'll also provide you a recorded session for QC, so you can just take a look at that as well. Sounds good? Okay. Emilio's question is, so this tool is basically used for defect management. Yes. What other activities of execution phase? None of them except reports. If you need to generate reports that are specific to defect-related statistics, then Bugzilla can be used. And what about tools for other testing phases like planning and designing? There are other tools to support those phases also. They are called test management software. We'll see about that, as I said, on Wednesday. Okay. Are there any project tools for managing the project as a whole? Absolutely. Test management or application lifecycle management software systems. That is also a part of this program, and we will take a look at that on Wednesday. Great, thank you. So if there are no Bugzilla related questions, we can move to a quick certification orientation. Although I don't claim to know it at all, I will just introduce you to the few common popular certification or choices that are available to you, and whether or not you want to go for certification is a personal choice. That's something I want to really emphasize on. But then this doesn't mean that we are done with the discussion on Bugzilla. If you still have questions, we will take them at the end of the session. Now, certification, how many of you are thinking about it? Okay. So I know that Sandhya is, and Tina is thinking about it. Okay. And are there anybody who are already certified? Any sort of certification? So the majority of the class is thinking about certification. Now, depending on who you talk to in the industry, there will be two polar opposite opinions you'll always hear. Either people will be completely pro certification or they will be totally against it. Now, if you ask me, I am pro certification. So I don't know. I mean, I'll just share my personal experiences with you all, and then probably you can make a educated choice on whether or not you want to go for certification. Now, I got certified after I got into a job. Usually, the impression is that certification helps with the jobs. That is 100% true, but that doesn't mean that that's all certification helps us with. See, from day to day, we perform a lot of QA activities, and we are involved in QA like really deep on a daily basis. But having said that, at least from where I came from, I mean, when I studied my computer science engineering, testing was nowhere part of the curriculum. When I got into testing, to be honest, I was disappointed because my mindset was always that when you are a software engineer, you develop, you write code, you build things. So to actually not be able to do that was a big disappointment for me, and I've never studied. I lacked that theoretical foundation that is important in order to perform any job very well. So I was really lost. I kind of didn't know what I was doing, whether I was doing it right or not. I mean, somebody was telling me, and to top that off, my first job was test execution, and it felt like there were test cases, everything was ready, and it felt like, does this job really need me? All I'm doing is reading and just clicking. It doesn't really need me. But only after I certified, I can say I really came to appreciate this field. I really came to appreciate what testing is, and I really came to see the intent of the extent of growth that you can find in this field. So for me personally, as a part of my personal professional journey, certification was a very important part because it provided that much needed theoretical foundation for me, and it also validated my work. It kind of said, okay, these are the international standards and this is where you stand. So I kind of got like a benchmark to actually measure my own performance. So that way I feel like certification is definitely not just confined to finding a job, but it can really help you in adapting to a job and to actually validate where you stand based on some international standards out there. So that's something that is a value that I see from the certification program. But having said that, I don't recommend seeing a certification as an evaluation exam. So don't look at it like an interview. See, if everything is supposed to test us and say yes, you are a pass or a fail, then it gets really, really stressful. So try not to look at it as a evaluation program, and that's one of the reasons why I don't include like tests or quizzes in this program in the class itself, because I want this to be fun and learning, and no stresses, no strings attached to it, no evaluation at the end, nobody telling you that you fit in or you not fit in. So don't look at certification that way, because the thing is it's natural to fall into that mold, because following a certification program is an exam. So don't stop looking at it as an exam and look at it as a learning experience. So what I recommend is setting aside like 2 or 3 months of time, at least 1 month of time, 1 to 3 months, depending on how much time you have. 1 to 3 months of time aside for certification, and in this process I recommend reading the syllabus, working through it, and really getting into the depths of what is it all about. So that is something that is very, very important. Don't worry about the exam, just learn the syllabus. See, if you learn everything that there is to know, there is no reason why you wouldn't pass an exam, right? So look at it that way, make it a journey, make it a part of learning, and then go for it. So if I have to like list out why get certified? First is you can evaluate your skill on an international board, as I said. And then for especially beginners and freshers, this will actually show that your commitment to the field. You can say, I mean, nobody goes through the pain of, taking classes, working on it, writing an exam, certifying, all that. Nobody will go through all the trouble and on top of that spend money to actually, just for the sake of it, right? So it just goes to show that you are committed to the field and you're here to stay. And then, there's the professional recognition, acknowledgement, and all. And I don't know how far this is true, but the industry research shows that the resumes with certification get picked up more often than the ones that are not certified. However, I do not have first-hand, I cannot confirm that, based on my first-hand experience. But if I have to answer this from my point of view, if I have two resumes, freshers, no prior experience, one is certified, one is not certified, chances are I'd probably talk to the one who's certified already. So even though there is a lot of negativity in the market on certification, I bet at the end of the day, we all are going to lean towards certified people more often than not. So certification is definitely an important, again, this is a personal choice. Again, I wouldn't say everybody has to get certified, but it's definitely not a waste of time. So it's definitely worth looking into, exploring, and seeing whether or not, it's something that you want to pursue. So I see some questions. Let me take them before we go any further. What are the basic common certification programs? So that's, I'll introduce you right now. Then Emilio's question is, you would say then that certification helps you to structure your mindset and give you order on the theory and knowledge of testing field more than learning a tool. I'm thinking about that. So this is certification versus learning a tool. Learning a tool is practical. See, let's look at building a house. Without a blueprint, without knowing, where plumbing needs to go and all that, what is the point of buying a power drill, right? Power drill is the tool there. So it's very important to know the structure, know why you're doing what you're doing. It's very important to have that theoretical foundation. I believe that. And I bet every one of you here present here believe that also. Otherwise, you wouldn't be taking this class. Right. I mean a learning way of, a structured way of learning testing. That's what you mean to say, correct? Right. Okay. I would say definitely yes. I mean, that has been my personal experience, at least so far. I hear these opinions that, it is hard to, read. I mean, test certifications, the biggest put off for most of the students is that the syllabus is like 500 or 600 pages, and then, they keep coming back to me and saying, hey, yeah, at this point of professional life, do I have to read like really 500 pages? I tell them it's not, don't focus on that big number, because if you look at it that way, it's always going to be huge. But then there's a lot of value to be learned. I personally enjoyed my certification journey, and I really, really highly recommend it. And trust me, right now I do freelancing. I mean, I work when I can and all that. And there's always a difference, a better respect that I get whenever I tell them I'm certified. And I mean, don't you feel that way too? I mean, when you join this class and when I introduce myself, don't you feel better about that, somebody is here and, I would too. So it's definitely a positive thing. But don't, I mean, if you do have a different opinion on certification, if you don't want to go through that, it does not have to be a negative thing. That's what I want to tell you all. So just because I'm pro certification doesn't mean you all have to be also. But since I'm here to give you an honest opinion on this, I feel like it's useful is all I'm saying. And not everything can be measured in terms of I did the certification, did I get the job or not. So that two things, try not to equate it ever, because it's a learning experience, and apart from the tangible job, salary and all, there are lots of things that you can learn in the process. Okay, coming back to the practical things that we are supposed to discuss in this class, that is the commonly available certifications. There are two options, broadly two options. One is the ISTQB and the other is CA, no, actually it is CSTE and CAST. These are the certifications by QAI. Now ISTQB, this is how the different levels. I'll just take you to the ISTQB homepage so we can look at the most common or most recent information. So ISTQB has these different levels actually. So there's foundational level, there's CTFL, CTAL, CTEL, that's the expert level. Now there is no prerequisite to get into the foundational level examination. However, if you need to go to the test manager or test analyst, you will have to finish the CTFL and then go on. But I'm thinking most of us are in the CTFL level at this point of time. So to write the CTFL foundational exam, you have no prerequisites. The fee we talked about the other day, I think is $300, but that will depend on where you live and all that. So just look at the website for the most recent information. This is a computer-based exam, but it's not something that you can sit at home and write. You'll have to go to the centers that conduct this exam on the specific date and time of your choice, and then go ahead and appear for this exam. The foundation level exam is what most of our participants appear for, and as I was saying the other day, we are proud to say we have a 100% success rate, and I know I cannot claim for any part of their success. I would say that Vijay's the material that Vijay sends out as a bonus to this class is actually, again, this is not my first-hand experience though. Most of the students say that it's very comprehensive and it has helped them a lot in scoring the, necessary marks to, be successful in the foundation level examination. So that's something that, we are proud of. And then the other thing I will tell you is go and take a look at the syllabus. You don't have to apply for the exam to actually be able to look at the syllabus. Even if you don't want to appear for this exam, you can download the syllabus, take a look at it, and see if you feel at least familiar about all the concepts that are here. Because at the end of the certification, why do we have an exam? To actually test whether or not we got all the concepts. So if you have all the concepts ahead, the exam is something that loses its significance. So see, if you are not planning to attend the exams, look at the syllabus, see if there are any gaps, try to fill them either by, you can talk to me, or you can, you can do some research online. Anything else is fine. And how long is the exam? I'll take you through all those details. It is a multiple choice question exam. There are 40 questions. The pass mark is 65%. So you need 26 questions of them right. The exam duration is an hour. You need 1 point per mark. There's no negative marking, no prerequisite, and the certificate is valid for life. So these are the high level details. There are 4 categories of questions that will come up: K1, K2, K3, K4. K1 is about how much you remember a concept, K2 is about how much you understand, K3 about how much you can apply the concept, K4 is about how you can analyze it. Again, this is a lot of, don't worry about which question belongs to which category. Trust me, the question and answers are not difficult, except that with multiple choice, it's always the case. It is slightly confusing is all, right? So that is there. So a little bit of a practice is definitely recommended. So Tina's question is, do you think 3 months solid is a minimum requirement for preparation for a fresher at CTFL? So 3 months is again, it depends on you actually. How far along do you think you're ready for this? How much time you can actually spend on it on a daily basis? All of these factors play a role. So I would say, no, actually, you know what? One of our participants, he's done it in 10 days. He was from the last batch. He started preparing on day 1 of the class beginning, and halfway through the sessions, he was done basically. So it's not, it is, yes, he's actually he was working as a travel agent, and since the market in Canada was bad, he wanted to move into IT. He's also from my hometown back in India, and so that was like a we were really interacting a lot in the class and everything. So yeah, and he's done it in 10 days. It was awesome actually. So it is not, I wouldn't say 1 month is too much of a tight schedule. Definitely not. 1 month is definitely doable. But then as I'm saying, it depends actually. See, sometimes students who are right out of the college, they are really in a mode that they want to get the job immediately. So they finish off in a few weeks. But for those of you who want to actually take some time, learn, and then do everything in a, one by one fashion, then they take longer. So this is a personal thing basically. So that's why I recommend 1 to 3 months. Don't plan anything more than 3 months, because that will definitely dilute your interest. And don't plan anything that is, less than a month. That will be too much, too aggressive. So try to fix up a time that's anywhere between 1 and 3 months. Anything beyond 3 months is not recommended. Of course, once you decide the date, you can actually postpone it. There is a penalty for that. I will not, lie about that. But you'll definitely have to pay a little bit of more money. But then there is an option to postpone it. I mean, we don't have to come to use that, but there is an option. So just take 3 months. It's actually pretty easier than you think. It's true. And this is true of everyone. What is the level of certification we are talking about? I see many levels. So the level of certification we are talking about is the CTFL, the foundation level, the one on the bottom. So this is what is, preferable for the most, recent, the newest people. So Hini, yes, we'll talk about, where I'm from and all that. Yes, definitely at the end. And if you are planning on any other level of certification in ISTQB, like advanced or expert level, for those you'll have to finish the CTFL first. So that's a prerequisite that ISTQB board has. Okay, so yeah, definitely take a look at syllabus and glossary and everything, and then come back to me if you have questions. Now, the main other area of certification is CSTE or CAST. I'll just take you to that page also. So these are the certifications by QAI, Quality Assurance Institute, and let me first take you through CSTE. CSTE stands for Certified Software Tester. Certified Software Tester, again, you can read all about this in the link, of course. But let me quickly come to what are the prerequisites. So this exam has some prerequisites. So you will have to at least have 18 months of experience, or any of the other things that you will have to satisfy. So this is one of the reasons why most of the students don't opt for CSTE. But then we have had few students who have tried this, even though they did not satisfy the prerequisites, they still applied, and they still could write the exam and pass it because they weren't asking for any proof of that. But then I cannot tell you that that will not happen in your case if you apply without satisfying the prerequisite, but I'm just telling you that has happened before. The fee is $300 to $420, or $350 if you choose to not get the soft copy. And then $420 is when you get the hard copy of the stuff. So it's a different pay structure. 350 or 420, you have two options. You can make that available. So 350 is where you will get a PDF document of the CBOK. CBOK is Common Book of Knowledge, that is the syllabus book, and 420 is when you get the CD and the book, so it's the same thing. And then the exam, this is another reason why this exam is completely not taken care of, not the go-to exam for most of the students. That's because this exam is 2.5 hours long. And there are two parts. Part 1 is multiple choice. There are 100 questions with 75-minute time limit. And part 2, there are short answers and essays. There are 12 questions each and 75 limit. So it's 2.5 hours. And the pass percentage is 70 as opposed to being 60 by the ISTQB. And this used to be, larger team. This used to be 85% when I took the certification. So they've actually reduced the pass percentage to 70 right now. And this is also a computer-based exam. You will have to set up your date and time, and then, go ahead and write the exam. Now, this certification is valid for 3 years of time, after which you will have to recertify. So following that, my certification right now is not valid anymore. But personally, it doesn't matter to me because I passed the exam once, I could pass it again, but it's not really about keeping the certificate active or anything. It's just that I wanted to know where I stand, with respect to the international standards and everything, and I kind of got a feeling about that. So that's a little bit about CSTE. And CSTE CBOK is 561 pages long, but I personally feel like CSTE syllabus is the best syllabus out there, because I find myself referring to those concepts till today whenever I teach a class or write an article or anything like that. For me, the point of reference is always the CSTE and CSQA syllabus. CSQA is the next level of exam that you write for Certified Software Quality Analyst. That's a higher level of certification. But I find that these two certification syllabuses are really, really robust. These are all the topics that are covered, but then, it's a 565 pages document, which is quite big, I agree. But then the syllabus is pretty good. Now, this exam is very intensive. People, that's why don't opt for it. But there is a happy medium to that, which is CAST exam. There are also some prerequisites. You can actually check that out. And then the fees is $100. The exam is just 100 questions. It's a 75 minute examination, and there's a 70% pass mark. This is completely multiple choice. So if you are thinking about ISTQB and QAI certifications, QAI syllabus is very, very standard and very, very good. However, there are prerequisites though that I want to tell you, and then the certificates are only valid for 3 years of time. CAST also is very new in the market, which means its exposure probably is not very widespread yet, but that is compensated by the fact that this is a certification by QAI, which is pretty much very, very standard in the market. So these are the 3 options that are available to you, and you can choose any of those. If you ask me which one is most used in the market, that is again comparing apples and oranges. So it's a personal choice. See, coming to syllabus, I would feel like, I know that it's a personal favorite of mine that I like the QAI syllabus, but that doesn't mean that ISTQB is anyway inferior. I bet it has this, same, if not more content than this one. So syllabus wise, all of them are same. It's just a matter of your personal preference, your style of examination, and if the prerequisites being solved or not. And then finally, whether or not you like a certain format of the examination, or whether it matters to you that the certification expires after a certain period of time. So these are all the options that are available to you, and you can make a choice based on which one you like. So there are lots of questions. I would love to take these. Let me see. Swati, did you complete all the levels, and is there a time limit to complete all of them? No, there is no time limit, and no, I did not complete all the levels. In fact, I'm not even ISTQB certified, so I am only CSTE and CSQA certified. So no, all the levels definitely not. Is there a benefit to doing all of them back to back? I think there's a certain level of professional maturity that you should get when you move from one certification to another. See, when you're doing CST, you're training to be a tester. Over a period of time, 1 or 2 years down the line, when you feel like you're ready to move into an analyst position, that's when it's good to do the quality analyst. So your theory and your practical implementation should go hand in hand, ideally. But doing back to back, I don't see any particular benefit to that. I see that some certification programs require job experience. Experience helps with certification, or at least it helps you to take more advantage of it. Absolutely. Experience lets you see, the reason why prerequisites exist is because they're not going to explain what is testing or what is this, what is that. So they're not going to go into the basics. And to actually see, when you're talking about testing is not an independent department within an IT organization. So you need to understand what a who a business analyst is, who somebody else is, who, what process means. And there are a few things that, we should know in order to be able to understand what the certification syllabus is talking about. So prerequisites is more about that than actually, saying that experience helps. But that's also true. Experience and the theory and practical, as I was saying, they have to go hand in hand. Otherwise, first thing is, we're not going to remember what we read if we don't implement it immediately. And the second thing is, if we don't implement it immediately, we also cannot validate whether or not the process mentioned in the certification syllabus works in reality or not. On the other hand, would you say that certifications helps you to detect wrong or not ideal practices someone has been using in his or her day before taking some kind of standard practice? Yes, that's also true. Without certification, sometimes, not with CSTE, but with CSQA, I've had that experience, because by the time I started taking CSQA, I moved into test manager and, on-site coordinator positions where more than work, I had to establish processes. And for me, CSQA came in at the right time, I would say. So it was like, I learned it there, I implemented it the very next day. So I kind of got to see immediate results. So yes, both your statements are absolutely right. ISTQB gives certificate for lifetime and QAI doesn't. No, it is just 3 years. But if ISTQB is easily accessible, can we opt for it? Absolutely. Why does a certification expire in X years? Because it is their belief that, as it is the case with anything, software testing also evolves over a period of time. So whenever it evolves, it is the tester's responsibility to stay, updated and get recertified. That's the logic behind that. But to actually stay updated, you don't have to write an exam to do that. See, it's the biggest, biggest line that we are all struggling to cross is the line between not being a QA to being a QA. But once you start being a QA, things, you are much more involved on it, and whether you like it or not, you will definitely update yourself with what's happening. So yeah. Any other questions? There's also the third kind of certifications called Brain Bench. These are things you will have to pay a nominal fees, but they are things that you can do from your home, your laptop, your system, all multiple choice, timed exams. Brain Bench, however, does not have as wide a reach as ISTQB or anything. It's Brain Bench. Let me write it down. So try that option as well. If you still don't feel like adventurous enough to start with the real one, try this. And if you take one or two aptitude exams and if you don't score very well, don't think that's a bad thing at all, because multiple choice questions are always confusing. And there was another question again early on. There's only one right choice for a question. Yes. So anything else that you want to discuss, team? So I'll do one thing. I'll open up the floor like I did the other day. We can discuss any questions that you have. Starting today, we will not have formal assignments. So I will say that those of you who are ready to move to the next live application, go ahead and do that. And then get some practice on these tools on a daily basis. Create your bugs. Write your name in the description and assign it to me. Swati Sila, you'll find me in that database, and so that I can actually, check and see how you're doing with the defect creation. So that's your assignment starting today. So Emilio says, you would say that if a company has a solid group of certified testers as part of the team, it helps to get certification for the company itself, such as CMMI. I don't think that level of CMMI or any other certification, that thing will come only when based on the processes that you're following and the extent to which you're seeing good results. So I don't think it's a prerequisite that the testers have to be certified, no. But then it's especially for a services company, it's a matter of pride. So they'll tell, okay, all our department is CST certified, all our department is CST certified. So that way, yes, use value wise it's there, but I don't think it's a prerequisite for, CMMI standard stamping or anything like that. So is there an assignment possible with the tool you teach in a class? Absolutely. Like, with the defect management tool, we can, create defects. So create some defects and send them to me. I'll review them. Assign them to Swati Sila from within the tool itself. Okay? All right, I'll stop the recording and, we can still hang around and, how to start reporting. That's it. You can just use this link. Yes, in the live application, whether it's Car Guruji or e-commerce, whatever you've been using, whatever defects you've encountered, first create a link here, put your email address, create a link. Following that, just come to the new bug screen. I think I logged out. That's why this is showing me. New bug screen and log the defect and assign that to me. That's all. Make sense? Give it a try, and if you can't, if you have any issues, we can discuss them tomorrow. Okay, I'm just going to stop the recording.